This page shows the front cover of 64 magazine, issue 53, featuring a large illustration of the number 64 alongside characters like Banjo and Kazooie. The cover highlights the review of Pokémon Stadium 2 and announces the UK release of Banjo-Tooie, the brilliant sequel we'd all been waiting for. It also points to coverage of a variety of games, including Mario Party 3 and Aiden Chronicles, alongside features on titles for the GameCube, GB Advance, and Game Boy Color, showing the magazine was broadening its scope. There are small screenshots of Pokémon Stadium 2 and Banjo-Tooie, plus others like Rainbow Islands and GT All Japan Racing. The issue promises cheats and competitions as well. This page starts with an advert for the Cheats Unlimited phone line, offering help across loads of systems like PlayStation, Dreamcast, and Nintendo consoles. The main feature introduces the 64 magazine team, who have apparently been transformed into Pokémon, which the editorial explains is down to everyone being hooked on Pokémon Stadium 2. The team members are shown as these new characters, with their personal Game of the Month picks listed, including classics like Rainbow Islands and Banjo-Tooie, along with GT Racing and Spider-Man. The editorial also lays out the magazine's plan to broaden its coverage as the N64 gets older, moving to feature the upcoming GameCube and the Game Boy consoles more heavily, which are shown pictured on the page. Due to the changing landscape, the magazine will also become a bi-monthly publication. This page is the contents rundown, showing you exactly what's packed inside issue 53. Front and center is the big review for Pokémon Stadium 2 on N64, which the mag reckons had a profound effect on the console. You've also got a preview of E3, featuring Nintendo bringing the brand new GameCube. There's a chance to win loads of gaming gear, and the comprehensive as of 64 solutions for your cheating needs. Scattered amongst the N64 stuff, reflecting the magazine's broadening scope, are reviews for Game Boy and Advance titles like Aiden Chronicles, Rainbow Islands, Mr. Driller 2, and Alone in the Dark, plus a UK update on Banjo-Tooie. This page is the magazine's news section, the showcase, kicking off with the big news that the GameCube has a definite launch date, hitting Japan in September and the others in November, after some fine-tuning delays. Nintendo is confident, having sent out over 600 development kits, and expecting great things at E3. Elsewhere, the tidbits confirm third parties like Interact and Pelican are prepping GameCube accessories for the show, and that a pink Game Boy Advance is coming to the US in July. Silicon Knights showed shots of their GameCube game 2 Human, while Prolific Publishing and Raylight Studios are also bringing titles to the console. The mag staff are heading to LA for E3, and word is Interplay are working on Galleon, touted as a Tomb Raider rival, with Toby Gard and Paul Douglas involved, although that one didn't make it to the Cube in the end. Sega is also backing Nintendo big time, with Sonic Team and Amusement Vision planning GameCube projects, including the online Phantasy Star Online. Ubisoft is getting in on the act too, with a massive development list, including Rayman for GameCube, and Square hinted they wanted to bring Final Fantasy Online, potentially to the console, though we never saw a main FF title on GameCube. Boo! Loads of screenshots dot the page, showing glimpses of Link from Zelda, Luigi from Luigi's Mansion, a racing game, 2 Human, Galleon, Phantasy Star Online, Rayman, and Final Fantasy. It was all go as E3 approached. This page continues the news, starting with tidbits mentioning Capcom discussing Biohazard for GameCube with a screenshot, and Sonic on Game Boy Advance being developed by Dimps. Acclaim's GameCube plans are touched upon, hinting at Turok, with a screenshot of a dinosaur. There's news on the Game Boy Advance selling incredibly well in Japan, along with shots from Broken Sword. The magazine staff even got involved in Bandana Week for charity, showing photos of Roy and Paul wearing bandanas. TDK Mediactive talks about their Game Boy Advance games Lady Sia and No Rules, and expresses interest in the GameCube for serious titles, showing a stunning landscape screenshot. The N64 news confirms Animal Forest, which became Animal Crossing, was one of the last titles to ship in Japan, pictured with a gameplay screenshot. Retro Studios is also highlighted, showing artwork from cancelled GameCube projects like Thunder Rally and Runeblade to demonstrate the console's potential, with screenshots of the art. Finally, Paradigm confirms they are working on GameCube games. This page is the letters section where readers share their thoughts on the Nintendo 64, other systems, and the magazine itself. The main image features Conker the Squirrel from Conker's Bad Fur Day alongside consoles like the N64 and GameCube. Readers write in discussing various N64 favorites including Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie, Perfect Dark, Star Wars Episode 1, Battle for Naboo, GoldenEye and Zelda titles. There's quite a bit of chat comparing the N64 favorably against the PlayStation. There's also a helpful explanation regarding the technical differences between PAL and NTSC N64 systems, and why games from different regions aren't compatible, which is important information for any serious gamer. The letters touch upon the N64's long run coming to an end, with debate around games like Perfect Dark, and even speculation about a potential sequel on the upcoming GameCube. The Star Letter Prize is highlighted as the top 4 N64 games from the game chart. The page also shows screenshots from other N64 games like Nintendo 64 World Grand Prix, Mario Tennis, Quake 2, and Vigilante 8 alongside the magazine's contact details. This page continues the letters section, featuring a bright mix of Nintendo characters like Pikachu and other Pokémon from Gold/Silver, alongside Banjo and Kazooie. Readers are writing in again, this time correcting the magazine's Pokémon number count in Gold/Silver, and debating the quality of N64 games compared to PlayStation and Dreamcast titles. There's also an interesting point raised about the value of competition between console manufacturers. The right side of the page is an advertisement for the THQ G Club, welcoming readers to their world of color. It promotes various Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance games, including eSports Stars 2001, Indiana Jones and the Infernal Machine, Emergency Patrol on GBC, and GT Advanced Championship Racing for the GBA, which it mentions was available from June 22, 2001. The ad offers free goodies, exclusive info, and discounts to members and encourages readers to cut out and send in a coupon to join. This page is from the 64 site section, looking at games coming out soon. It covers 2 Game Boy Advance titles. First up is Spider-Man: Mysterio's Menace, published by Activision and developed by Vicarious Visions, with a release planned for autumn. It looks like a classic 2D side-scrolling action game, which Spidey is always good for. The screenshots show him swinging and fighting across city rooftops, and what looks like a train carriage. It's shaping up to be a solid handheld adventure for the webslinger. Then we have Dark Arena, from Majesco and Graphic State, slated for Christmas 2001. This one was a real surprise. A first-person shooter on the Game Boy Advance. The preview talks about tackling genetically engineered creatures in an abandoned training camp. The screenshots show the corridor crawling and combat views you'd expect from the genre. It sounds like it packed in a decent amount of content for a handheld FPS back then, with levels, FMV, and even deathmatch support via link cable. Both these games did indeed see release on the GBA. This page continues the look at upcoming games in the 64 site section, focusing on Game Boy Advance titles. Seibuzuri. First up is F-14 Tomcat, a flight sim from Majesco and Virtuacraft. It's based on an old SNES title and promises dogfights, weapons, and carrier landings. The screenshots show the cockpit view, external shots of the plane, and a carrier in the ocean, giving you a real sense of being in the pilot's seat. It sounds like it aims to capture the feeling of those classic flight games on the handheld. Then there's Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, published by Activision and developed by Vicarious Visions. This brings the incredibly popular skating series to the GBA. It's all about pulling off tricks and combos to unlock new areas and become the best skater. The preview notes that while levels are brought over from the console versions, the GBA uses fixed camera angles. There are even some new levels specifically designed for this handheld version. Screenshots show various skaters performing tricks on ramps and rails, complete with score displays, looking very much like the Tony Hawk everyone knows and loves. Both of these GBA titles did indeed make it to release. This page continues the look at upcoming Game Boy Advance titles, this time focusing on Rayman Advance. It previews the game starring the classic limbless wonder in a platforming adventure. The game involves running, jumping, fighting foes with Rayman's detachable fist, and collecting items, much like the console Rayman games. The preview highlights the varied levels, including a memorable section where Rayman rides a giant pink mosquito. It praises the game's visuals, noting the lush graphics with continuous 4-level parallax scrolling and the vividly colorful, cartoonish environments. Screenshots scattered across the page show Rayman navigating these diverse stages, encountering enemies, and engaging in platforming challenges. The preview notes that Rayman Advance is being developed and published by Ubisoft, and was expected for a UK release in June 2001. Rayman Advance did indeed release on the GBA around that time, bringing his unique brand of platforming to the handheld. This page previews the Game Boy Advance game Lady Sia. It focuses on the heroine's quest for revenge after her homeland is destroyed by evil creatures. The game is described as a platforming adventure with glorious graphics, inspired by Japanese anime, featuring formidable foes and boss characters. Key gameplay elements mentioned include Lady Sia's ability to fight, and her special talent for transforming into a giant Sasquatch. The preview suggests the game looks promising, hoping the gameplay lives up to the impressive visuals. Lady Sia was indeed released on the GBA, offering its unique blend of action and platforming. This page features a light-hearted look at the Game Boy Advance manual, specifically highlighting some rather peculiar warnings found in the Japanese version. Presented as a top 10 list, these bizarre instructions include gems like not using the console to steer your car, attempting to wear it as a shoe, or letting snowmen get their hands on it. It's a humorous commentary on overly cautious, or perhaps lost in translation advice. The page includes illustrations depicting each warning, and features characters such as Mario and Sonic the Hedgehog. It's a bit of fun exploring the quirks of early GBA ownership. This page dives into the excitement of E3 2001, the biggest games show around. It sets the scene, mentioning the buzz not just for Nintendo but also the upcoming Xbox and Sony's PS2, showing off games like Gran Turismo 3 and Final Fantasy X. The real focus, though, is Nintendo's big reveal. The article talks about the anticipation for the GameCube, promising that hardware specs and pricing would be announced, and crucially, playable demos would be running on the actual console. It notes that Nintendo was keeping things tight-lipped, but SSX was expected to be a highlight. It also dedicates a section to the Game Boy Advance, acknowledging its rapid success, and that E3 would be the first time non-Japanese developers would heavily showcase their GBA titles. Expect to see loads of GBA games, they say, mentioning highlights like the Pokemon GBA game unveil, eCard reader support, and the Jibata GameCube link-up features. They tease titles like Doom, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, Spider-Man, Super Street Fighter 2, and Namco Museum. There's a whole list of upcoming GBA games, highlighting the breadth of titles on the horizon. The page includes screenshots showing gameplay from GBA titles, including what looks like Tony Hawk, Spider-Man, and F-Zero Maximum Velocity, alongside a photo of the exterior of the E3 venue. This page gives us a closer look at the Nintendo GameCube controller, showing off different prototypes and discussing potential features like tilt sensitivity and even voice recognition, alongside the confirmed analog sticks and buttons. It also highlights the Wavebird, a wireless version of the pad which was pretty revolutionary back then. Then it moves on to the real meat of the E3 preview, looking at the games from various companies predicted to be shown for the GameCube. Silicon Knights are mentioned with promises of playable Two Human and Eternal Darkness demos, the latter being a cracking horror title we all looked forward to. Retro Studios were rumored to be working on a Metroid game, which turned out to be Metroid Prime, a bona fide classic. Rare were bringing Dinosaur Planet, which eventually became Star Fox Adventures, and there was talk of a new Killer Instinct, which sadly never happened on the Cube. Left Field were expected to show 1080 Snowboarding sequel and Kobe Bryant's game. NSTC had Wave Race lined up. EA looked set to bring SSX, FIFA, and Madden. Acclaim were bringing a whole host of sports and racing titles, like Extreme Egg 3, plus Turok Evolution. Capcom had Biohazard Zero, Resident Evil Zero coming, a prequel that was fantastic, and Konami were promising International Superstar Soccer playable, with teasers of Contra and Castlevania on video, though Silent Hill 2 wasn't planned for the Cube. It was a jam-packed lineup of possibilities. E3 previews for the GameCube lineup highlighted several publishers. THQ was expected to show Rugrats. Ubisoft planned 19 titles, including GBA, games like Rayman Advance, and potential Cube titles like Evil Twin. Midway announced strong support with Top Gear, NFL Blitz, and San Francisco Rush. Factor 5 showcased Tornado, and a Star Wars game, Rogue Squadron 2. Namco presented Ridge Racer V and Tekken Tag Tournament. Infogrames was to preview Unreal Tournament and Bomberman. Activision likely displayed Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, and Sega brought Phantasy Star Online, with collaborations with Nintendo teased. Nintendo themselves showcased playable Mario and Zelda titles, with F-Zero on video. Interviews included Luis Gabriel, Ubisoft, confirming their commitment to both the GameCube and GBA, and Metro Musafa, Midway, praising Nintendo and looking forward to the next Mario game, along with potential future titles like Metroid, Star Fox, Yoshi's Island, and Zelda. In anticipation of Nintendo's GameCube and Game Boy Advance, interviews with key figures from THQ and Konami reveal their strategies. THQ, a major third-party publisher, planned titles like Tetris and GT Advance for GBA, and Rugrats for GameCube. They were optimistic about the GameCube's launch, noting Nintendo's early developer support. THQ was also interested in titles such as WFESI, WF, SmackDown 3, and Metal Gear Solid 2. John Murphy from Konami highlighted their strong support for the new consoles, with plans for Castlevania and Konami Crazy Racers on the GBA, aiming for 10 titles by year-end. Murphy contrasts Nintendo's specialist approach with PlayStation's mass-market appeal. He was excited for games like Silent Hill 2, Devil May Cry, and Final Fantasy X. This page features a competition offering readers the chance to win prizes related to various games and movies like The Mummy Returns, Dukes of Hazzard, X-Men, The Emperor's New Groove, and Doug's Big Game, many of which appear to be Game Boy Color titles. The competition requires answering simple questions, including one about the successor to the Game Boy Color, and another about the big video game show, where Nintendo would unveil the GameCube, directly following up on the previous page's discussion of Nintendo's upcoming consoles and developer plans. This page lays out exactly how the magazine goes about reviewing games, giving you the lowdown on all those little boxes and scores you'll see throughout the review section. It shows off Pokémon Stadium 2 and Spider-Man quite prominently, alongside various consoles like the N64, Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance, giving you a hint of what's coming up. You'll find explanations for the Ninfo box, which covers things like players and release details, the $64,000 question, which is where the good and bad points are listed, and how they handle PAL conversions. It also details their comprehensive rating system, breaking down scores for graphics, audio, gameplay, and challenge out of 5, which then feed into the final percentage score. There are descriptions for what each percentage range means, from a perfect 95% plus score that gets the coveted gold medal award down to the absolute rubbish you should steer clear of. They also touch on explaining the N64 controller buttons and where they get import games from. Looks like this issue covers a good mix of games across Nintendo platforms, including Banjo-Tooie on 64, and several handheld titles like Spider-Man 2, Mr. Driller 2, and even Alone in the Dark, The New Nightmare. This page is the full review spread for Pokémon Stadium 2. It's dominated by some fantastic artwork of Lugia and Hu, really showing off the big legendary Pokémon from the Gold and Silver games. You've got screenshots too, featuring battles like Charizard up against a Wigglytuff, shots of the new quiz section, and a look at Earl's Pokémon Academy, which is a decent tutorial mode for new players. The review itself covers the key points. It's the follow-up to the first Stadium game, naturally building upon it to incorporate all the new Pokémon from the Game Boy Color's Gold and Silver versions. It adds a bunch of new minigames and gives explanations for moves in battle, which is handy. They point out that while it looks great and has these improvements, you still absolutely need to own the Game Boy games and the transfer pack, which wasn't supplied, to get the real value out of it and transfer your own Pokémon and stats. The quiz is mentioned as a fun addition, though you don't win anything from it. It supports 14 players and was an import release initially, coming in at a hefty £65. Ultimately, the feeling is it's a strong sequel with good additions, especially the Academy, but its core is very similar to the original. This page delves into some specific features of Pokémon Stadium 2. It highlights the inclusion of a selection of minigames, drawing a comparison to the Mario Party series. These are designed for up to 4 players, offering different difficulty levels and are described as being good fun. The page showcases screenshots and descriptions for several of these, such as Gutski Golbat, where you fly and collect hearts, Barrier Ball, which is a 4-player take on Pong, Topsy Turvy, where you knock opponents out of a ring, Clear Cut Challenge involving cutting logs, Furret's Frolic, which sees you knocking balls into a goal, Pichu's Power Plant, where you charge up Pichu, Rampage Rollout, a bizarre racing game, Streaming Stampede, where you count Pokemon, Tumbling to Gepi, Simple Race, Delibirds Delivery, testing memory and movement skills, Egg Emergency, catching falling eggs, and Eager Eevee, where you grab items in the middle of a circle. Kichaway. Below the minigames, there's a section called Changing Rooms. This is a neat feature that allows players who have been playing the Game Boy Color Gold or Silver games to transfer items they've collected using the transfer pack. These transferred items can then be used to customize your in-game room within Pokémon Stadium 2, which is a unique bit of crossover functionality between the console and handheld titles. The screenshots clearly show this room customization in action. Pokémon Stadium 2 builds upon its predecessor, offering an enhanced experience for Pokémon Gold and Silver players. The game features handheld on the big screen, allowing players to use the transfer pack to play Game Boy Color games on the N64. Key improvements include in-battle move details accessible via the D-pad and an improved Pokédex in Professor Oak's lab, which facilitates organizing, trading, and stat checking. New modes include the Challenge Cup, which provides preset teams for battles, and the Pokéquiz, adding a challenge. The review emphasizes its value, especially for Gold and Silver owners who can transfer their Pokémon. Despite the strong 89% score, a second opinion suggests it may feel repetitive for those familiar with the first game. Screenshots showcase various features, including the transfer pack functionality, battles, and the lab interface. This page is all about Spider-Man 2, the Sinister Six on the old Game Boy Color, proper portable action. It's a cracking side-scrolling platformer, where you take control of Spidey to stop the Sinister Six and rescue Aunt May. What makes it stand out isn't just the punching and kicking, but Spider-Man's unique abilities. You can cling to walls, swing from webs, and explore levels vertically, not just side to side. The review reckons this adds a great sense of freedom and exploration, making it more than your average platformer. It looks the part too, with visuals that capture that classic comic book feel, and Spidey moves smoothly. While some levels might feel a bit similar, the boss battles help keep things interesting. The Game Boy Color controls are simple and effective for swinging and fighting. The review gives it a solid 89% overall, hailing it as a top-notch platformer, and maybe even one of the best you'll find in the genre on the GBC. The soundbite agrees, calling it top platform action for all true believers. Even the second opinion is full of praise, finding it an incredible platformer that handles like a dream. Screenshots show Spidey mixing it up with villains like Mysterio and navigating detailed environments. Good stuff. This page dives into a review of Rainbow Islands for the Game Boy Color. It's the sequel to the classic arcade game Bubble Bobble, featuring Bub and Bob again, but this time they're using rainbows instead of bubbles to fight enemies and get around. See ya. The game is a platformer, where you navigate levels by making your way from the bottom to the top, collecting items and dealing with strange creatures. The key mechanic is the rainbow, which serves multiple purposes. You can fire them at enemies to turn them into fruit to collect for points, use them as platforms to climb, or even use them to reveal hidden items. The review praises it as a practically flawless conversion of the arcade game, and incredibly addictive, despite being only one player. It highlights the bosses at the end of each island, noting that their difficulty can vary unexpectedly. Screenshots show various levels, including ones with sandcastles, metallic structures, and watery sections, along with some of the boss battles against foes like a spider and a vampire. The review clearly regards it highly, calling it a game every self-respecting Game Boy Color owner should have. This page continues the look at Rainbow Islands on the Game Boy Color. It goes into more detail about the game modes, like story and score attack, and how you progress through the islands. It explains how collecting potion power-ups makes your rainbows better and faster, and how the running shoe power-up helps you move quicker, which is proper handy against the nippier enemies. See? The game's split into islands, each with levels leading up to a boss. It does mention one bit of a downside, mind you. There's no save facility, just passwords, which means you lose your scores when you turn the machine off. A bit annoying, but the review still calls it an absolute must-buy, praising the ultra-addictive classic arcade gameplay, saying the graphics are some of the best on the Game Boy Color and the music is cracking too. The screenshots show off more of the varied levels you'll encounter. Down in the bottom line section, it gives a quick rundown of the controls, lists some similar games like Rayman, and shows the ratings for graphics, audio and gameplay, all looking strong, leading to a grand overall score of 93%. Cracking platformer? This one. This page reviews Mr. Driller 2, this time for the Game Boy Advance. It talks about the simple yet addictive gameplay loop, where you drill down through layers of blocks, making sure to keep your air supply topped up by grabbing the tanks. It mentions characters like Susumu Hori and Ataru, shown in the screenshots alongside the gameplay. The game is described as fast-paced and frantic, requiring quick reactions to avoid falling blocks. While the graphics are called crisp and colorful, the review notes the levels are quite similar, which is a bit of a drawback. However, it highlights the game's challenging nature and how absorbing it is, suggesting you just can't put it down once you start drilling. There's a second opinion that echoes the sentiment that it's compulsive and addictive fun, despite being tough in places. The overall score comes in at a solid 80%. It sounds like a proper good puzzler for the handheld, certainly one that demands your attention. Aiden Chronicles, the First Mage, an N64 RPG, attempts to merge PC RPG depth with action-oriented combat. Players control Alaron, a knight seeking a cure for poison, accompanied by a party of companions. Combat features real-time movement and aiming, deviating from traditional turn-based systems. The game world is expansive, filled with enemies and spells. However, the review notes issues such as clunky controls, dated graphics, and frustrating camera angles. While ambitious, the reviewer points out excessive dialogue and walking, potentially overshadowing the action. Overall, Aiding Chronicles is presented as a flawed but innovative attempt to redefine the console RPG experience. The next page is the full review for Aiding Chronicles. The first page, picking up from the preview on the previous page, it dives into the details of this N64 RPG, highlighting its ambition with features like varied weather effects and a fatigue system for your party members, adding layers of realism. The review notes the game's AI is quite capable, making combat challenging. However, it points out significant issues with controls and camera angles during fights, which can make aiming difficult. It also mentions the graphics are a bit dated compared to other N64 titles, despite the game supporting the expansion pack. The environments and character designs are shown in the screenshots. The sound is described as atmospheric, but with some strange effects. Despite the flaws, the review concludes that while it might test some players' patience due to its pace and issues, it's still an enjoyable experience, especially for fans of the RPG genre, earning an overall score of 73%. There's also a second opinion provided, which echoes the sentiment that it's a decent, albeit imperfect, game for genre enthusiasts. This page features a review for Doug's Big Game, a title for the Game Boy Color. It's based on the popular cartoon show, and follows Doug's quest to find Patty. The review notes, the game captures the look of the show well in its graphics. Gameplay involves classic adventure elements like collecting objects and completing tasks, with sections where Doug becomes Quailman for minigames in a dream world. The game is described as straightforward, but with challenges that can sometimes be a bit bizarre. An interesting point is the replayability, as tasks and minigames change on subsequent playthroughs, adding something new each time. Screenshots show various scenes from the game, including characters in familiar locations, and the Quailman sections. The review highlights the game's imaginative nature and overall enjoyment, concluding it's a solid experience, earning an 80% score. This page features a review for Elevator Action on the Game Boy Color. It's presented as a solid, old-school action game from Taito, focusing on gameplay rather than graphics. You play as a secret agent navigating buildings via lifts and escalators to steal documents, with the action described as flowing at a blistering rate. While the gameplay is addictive, the review notes that the levels can feel a bit samey, and the lack of a save function means you have to play it through in one go. Despite these points, it's seen as perfect for passing the time on the go. It earned an overall score of 80%. This page features a review for The Mummy Returns on the Game Boy Color. It follows on from the first game, again based on the movie, with Rick and Evelyn back in action against the Scorpion King. The review notes the game attempts to offer varied gameplay styles across its 11 levels, including platforming, escape sequences, beat-em-up sections, and even a shoot-em-up. Despite the ambition, the controls are highlighted as being particularly poor and unresponsive, which significantly impacts the overall experience. There are screenshots showing the different gameplay types, from side-scrolling platforming to the top-down view of the shoot-em-up style. The graphics and sound effects are described as decent, with the sprites being colorful, but ultimately the core gameplay falters. The review suggests the previous Mummy game was actually more enjoyable. The overall score awarded to The Mummy Returns on GBC is 60%, with lower ratings for gameplay and challenge compared to graphics and audio. The second opinion essentially echoes the main review's sentiment, calling it dull and irritating despite initial promise. Alternatives listed include the original The Mummy GBC, and Perfect Dark on the N64. It's clear this wasn't a classic on the handheld. This page features a look at the highly anticipated sequel, Banjo-Tooie, on the N64. It's pitched as being even better than the original, much like great movie sequels build upon their predecessors. The premise sees Banjo and Kazooie back to stop Gruntilda, who's returned as a skeleton and is turning people into zombies. The feature highlights that many of the moves from the first game are available from the start, making the initial levels easier, but plenty of new abilities are introduced as you progress, expanding the gameplay possibilities significantly. There are new areas to explore, shown in several screenshots depicting diverse environments and characters from the game, including mumbo-jumbo and enemy designs. It notes that the game successfully takes all the elements that made Banjo-Kazooie so popular, and ramps them up for a massive, enjoyable challenge. The article compares it favorably to other successful sequels like The Empire Strikes Back and Aliens, and places it among Rare's impressive lineup on the N64, mentioning GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, and the first Banjo-Kazooie as context for Rare's quality. It's clear this was expected to be another Rare classic. Banjo-Tooie is a strong follow-up. The UK PAL version runs flawlessly. Gameplay offers fresh experiences, including first-person sections and the ability to split up Banjo and Kazooie for puzzles. The game's huge size and diverse moveset keep things engaging. Visually, it's a Rare masterpiece with detailed environments, smooth animation and improved shadows. Controls are near perfect. The sound design is outstanding, with helpful cues and humorous dialogue. Unique features include a train system connecting areas and multiplayer minigames, accessible from unlocked areas. Screenshots showcase varied environments and multiplayer modes. Banjo-Tooie was considered a top-tier N64 release. This page wraps up the look at Banjo-Tooie, confirming its high praise with a cracking 93% overall score. It's called Brilliant and is noted for being a massive, impressive title with challenging and addictive gameplay, though it gets tough near the end. The review highlights Banjo-Tooie's focus on puzzles and adventure, compared to Conker's more action-oriented style, stating Banjo-Tooie is perfect for those who like a bit more brainpower with their platforming. A second opinion weighs in, stating that having played the final version of Conker's Bad Fur Day, they actually prefer Banjo-Tooie, calling it a fantastic game for many happy hours. The page also points out Rare's clever inclusion of cameo parts, showing how they sneak characters like Jinjo and Kazooie into other Rare games like Conker's Bad Fur Day. Screenshots on the page show various moments from the game, including some of these noted cameos and specific gameplay areas. The alternative section lists other top Rare N64 games like Banjo-Kazooie and Conker's Bad Fur Day. The overall sentiment is clear. Banjo-Tooie was a superb follow-up. This page reviews Alone in the Dark, The New Nightmare, a surprising 3D adventure title for the Game Boy Color. It's noted as a huge technical feat for the handheld, bringing a survival horror experience with texture-mapped 3D graphics and atmospheric environments, drawing comparisons to Resident Evil. The review highlights the scale of the game and its compelling adventure elements. While praising the ambition and look, it does mention the movement and fixed camera angles can be a bit frustrating at times. Overall, it's seen as a fantastic achievement for the system, offering a deep and engaging experience despite the control quirks. The screenshots show off the game's impressive 3D environments and character models. It scores a solid 89% overall. This page is a massive advert for gameplay, offering a wide range of games across N64 and Game Boy Color, including top N64 titles like Conker's Bad Fur Day and Banjo-Tooie, plus a look at the upcoming Game Boy Advance and various peripherals, all available for mail order. This page takes a look at some handheld games. First up is GT. All Japan Racing on the Game Boy Advance, a racing game based on the Japanese touring car scene. It's packed with features like a course editor, and lots of cars, boasting decent graphics and sound. The handling can be tricky with larger vehicles, but it offers a solid racing experience, earning an 83% overall. Also reviewed is WDL Thunder Tanks for the Game Boy Color, a top-down action title where you drive a tank around cities blowing things up. It has a few good ideas, but the gameplay is repetitive and lacks depth, which is reflected in its low 39% score. Screenshots show the third-person racing view and the top-down tank action. This page is the score zone, where readers have sent in their best scores and times for various N64 games. They're highlighting achievements in games like Mario Kart 64, Quake 2, Perfect Dark, Diddy Kong Racing, Donkey Kong 64, and Banjo-Kazooie, among others. The magazine is actually asking for scores on newer titles, as they're still getting lots of submissions for classics like GoldenEye and Perfect Dark. There's a big picture of Conker down the side, and images of Nintendo consoles at the top. This page is the score zone, where readers have sent in their top times and scores for various N64 games. You can see some cracking performances here, in games like GoldenEye, Tetrasphere, Legend of Zelda, including Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask sections like The Biggest Fish and Swamp Archery, and Shadows of the Empire. They're still getting lots of entries for classics like GoldenEye, but they're also pushing for scores on other titles in the Score Zone Challenge, asking for top efforts in games like Mario Tennis and Pokemon Puzzle League. There's also a mention of the Ultimate Player competition, rewarding the best player with a steering wheel. This page is the Cheat Central, offering an A to Z guide packed with hints, tips, and cheats for numerous N64 games. It's billed as a comprehensive list updated monthly, with new additions highlighted in red and updated ones in green, which is a nice touch for tracking what's fresh. You can see prominent sections dedicated to classics like Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie, with several cheats listed for them, including ways to unlock items and moves. There's also a good chunk of content for battle tanks, Global Assault, Army Men, Sarge's Heroes, and Conker's Bad Fur Day, featuring multiplayer codes and level access. The page covers a wide array of other titles too, from Aerofighter's Assault to WWF games, providing codes for things like character unlocks, infinite lives, and special abilities. There are screenshots showing Banjo and Kazooie, Conker looking sharp, and a character from Army Men. It's essentially the go-to spot for getting an edge in your favorite N64 games. This page continues the comprehensive Cheat Central, covering a massive list of tips and tricks for loads of N64 games. You've got more for Conker's Bad Fur Day, including multiplayer modes and weapon unlocks. There are codes for racers like Cruise and Exotica, fighter tips for Fighter's Destiny, and absolute essentials for GoldenEye 007, covering invincibility, weapons, and level selects. Duke Nukem 64 gets a mention with character unlocks and health tips. Racing fans can find cheats for Excitebike 64, Extreme Egg, and F1 World Grand Prix. There's also good stuff for Jet Force Gemini, including weapon and ammo secrets. Diddy Kong Racing gets a section on unlockables and magic codes, while Dr. Mario 64 has tips for the AI difficulty. The page features screenshots from GoldenEye 007 showing action and combat, characters from Jet Force Gemini, and Donkey Kong from Diddy Kong Racing. It's a solid resource for anyone wanting an edge on these classics. This page carries on with Cheat Central, this time diving into tips for games like Harvest Moon 64, offering advice on farming and winning medals. There's also Mario Golf with character and course unlocks, and Mickey's Speedway USA, where you can unlock Louis and new circuits. Micro Machines 64 gets a look in with cheats for car views and speed. You'll find secrets for Mischief Makers, NHL Breakaway, 98 player unlocks, and International Superstar Soccer 98 with extra heads and players. Fighting fans get Mace, The Dark Age with practice and character select tips, plus Mortal Kombat Trilogy, and Mortal Kombat 4 cheats for characters and modes. Finally, there are extensive secrets for Mario Party covering stars and minigames, multi-racing championship tips, and Paper Mario cheats for partners and areas. The page features great screenshots from Harvest Moon 64, Mario Golf, Mace, The Dark Age, Mario Party, and Paper Mario, alongside big pictures of Mario and Mickey Mouse. This page continues the cheat guide, covering a load more classics like Perfect Dark with tips for unlocking those GoldenEye weapons, Pokemon Stadium 2 secrets for the rental Pokemon and Gym Leader Castle, and Pokemon Puzzle League badges. There are also cheats for Puyo Puyo Sun 64, Quake 2 level passwords, Rakuga Kids costume unlocks, and Rampage 2, Universal Tour passcodes. Boxing fans get plenty for Ready 2 Rumble Boxing, Round 2, showing you how to unlock all the hidden fighters. You'll also find cheats for Resident Evil 2, Robotron 64, Road Rash 64, Nuclear Strike, Off-Road Challenge Vehicle Unlocks, Ogre Battle 64 tips, and Rainbow Six passwords. The page is packed with great artwork from Perfect Dark and Pokemon, plus screenshots from the boxing games. The next page is absolutely stuffed with Cheat Central goodness, providing secrets for a huge lineup of N64 classics. You'll find a load of codes for Rush 2, Extreme Racing, USA, and San Francisco Rush 2049, letting you mess with physics, unlock tracks and cars. There are extensive cheats for the South Park game, giving you access to everything from invincibility to unlocking all the characters. You've also got secrets for 1080 snowboarding, South Park Rally, Space Station, Silicon Valley, Rugrats, Treasure Hunt, Scars, Shadowgate 64, StarCraft 64, Star Soldier, and a couple of Star Wars titles, Episode 1 and Rogue Squadron, with codes for ships, modes, and even infinite lives. The massive Spider-Man section details how to unlock different costumes and powers, which is brilliant for swinging around the city. The page is decorated with some top-notch artwork of Spider-Man and the Rugrats, along with screenshots from games like South Park, San Francisco Rush 2049, and Spider-Man, showing off the action. A real treasure trove of cheats here. This page is another cracking installment of Cheat Central, giving you the lowdown on countless codes for a massive list of N64 hits. You can get all sorts of unlocks for legendary games like GoldenEye 007, find handy tips for Zelda, Majora's Mask, or mess around with invincibility in the Turok titles. There are secrets for racing games like San Francisco Rush and Top Gear, cheats for Super Mario 64 and Super Smash Bros., and even a bonkers one to turn into a car in Superman. The page is livened up with some smashing artwork of Link from Majora's Mask, and a load of screenshots from various games showing off the different cheating results. They're even asking for readers to send in their own discoveries, which is a nice touch. This page features a selection of special offers on best-selling books and guides for N64 games, along with phone tones and graphics. You can order detailed guides covering classics, like Donkey Kong 64, Banjo-Kazooie, Zelda 64, Turok 2, GoldenEye, and Lilat Wars, offering secrets, strategies, and solutions. There's also the As of 64 Games, Volume 4 guide. Additionally, you could get various tones and graphics for your phone, including sounds and symbols related to iconic N64 titles, such as Zelda, Mario, Donkey Kong, and Turok. This page presents the Nindex, which is the magazine's comprehensive guide to every N64 game they've ever reviewed. It features a fantastic illustration packed with classic N64 characters like Link, Goron, Skull Kid, and others from the console's library. The page provides keys to understand the game listings, explaining the icons for players, peripherals like the controller pack, rumble pack, and expansion pack, whether it was released in the UK, the issue it was reviewed in, the score it received, and a brief comment. It also breaks down the genre descriptions. They explain their scoring system, highlighting games that score 90% or above get the 64 Sizzler Award, and those hitting 95% or more earn the coveted 64 Gold Medal. The core of the Nindex is a massive list of games with all this data, offering a great way to see how everything stacks up. They also feature their Our Top 10 N64 games, showing off screenshots for absolute classics like Conker's Bad Fur Day, Paper Mario, Perfect Dark, Banjo-Tooie, Tom and Jerry and Fists of Fury, StarCraft 64, Sin and Punishment, GoldenEye, Zelda 2, which looks like a screenshot from Ocarina of Time or Majora's Mask, and Zelda. Again, screenshot looks like Ocarina of Time or Majora's Mask. That top 10 alone is legendary. This page continues the comprehensive Nindex, showing more of the full list of games reviewed by the magazine with their details and comments. It also features the top 5 games in several key categories: shoot-'em-ups, adventure games, platform games, fighting games, and 4-player games, each highlighted with a screenshot and their top titles. It's a cracking way to see which games really stood out in each genre. The next page carries on the comprehensive Nindex list, showing even more of the games reviewed by the magazine, along with their scores and comments. It also features the top 5 games in racing, party/puzzle, strategy/simulation, and sports genres, each highlighted with a screenshot and the top titles listed. And perhaps most entertainingly, it gives us the top 5 bad games, complete with a frankly grim screenshot of what must be one of the worst examples. It's a cracking overview of the hits and misses across various categories. This page continues the comprehensive Nindex listing, this time focusing on Game Boy Color titles with their scores and comments. It also highlights a list of the top 5 bad Game Boy Color titles, complete with a rather unfortunate screenshot. The main part of the page is a big back issues section, featuring striking artwork of Joanna Dark from the brilliant N64 stealth shooter, Perfect Dark. This advert lets readers catch up on any issues they missed, prominently featuring issue 52, which included a massive review of the hilarious and superb N64 game Conker's Bad Fur Day, alongside previews and reviews for Game Boy titles like Earthworm Jim, Dr. Mario, and Pokémon Puzzle League, likely part of the coverage for the new Game Boy Advance. This page is looking ahead, getting everyone ready for the launch of the Game Boy Advance with a big UK review coming in the next issue. They're also promising coverage of the big E3 show, including reviews of the N64 games Dr. Mario 64 and Indiana Jones and the Infernal Machine, plus the latest on the GameCube and plenty of tips. It's also got the standard page to reserve your copy of the magazine. And there's a huge advert for mobile phone ringtones and graphics, offering loads of different tunes and pixel art icons for your phone, covering various models.